Okay, ready to roll here on a Saturday morning, getting you up to date as far as the world of golf is concerned. Thanks to our friends at Insperity. Visit insperity.com for powerful HR solutions with exceptional follow through. Charlie, what a last couple weeks for you with your friend Angel Cabrera. 2 senior majors in the last 3 weeks now. Congratulations,
Is
coach.
that redemption or what? He paid his dues. He went to prison. Things are difficult, and he comes out and he wins three times, and he's winning it at the right way, and then to win at congressional
Yeah.
side of the U.S. Open where Rory won by a bunch that year he won. But yes, it's great to see. He's very happy. He's very humble. He understands, what transpired and how he benefited from bad to now
Yeah.
he's a world class player and got a couple majors and the sky's the limit.
To add on to his win at the Masters and his win at the 2007 U.S. Open at Oakmont, he's now won, just this year, the James Hardy Pro Football Hall of Fame Invitational, won the Regions Tradition, the first senior major of the year, and then won the 2025 Senior PGA. Charlie, last week's PGA Tour champion, Ben Griffin, talked a lot about how much working out has helped his game and how getting a little more distance has really helped his game. Cabrera's on a similar routine. Would you say that has been a big thing to help his success, coming out of the little trouble he was in to winning 3 times, here in the last 5 months?
Angel is very always been a very strong person, and the way he grew up and what he had to do for a living, and he didn't have a car until he was almost 30, and so he did a lot of walking. And I figured out that the year he won the 2009 U.S. Open, walking down the 18th fairway, he had walked 57,000 miles in his life.
Wow. Wow. And
Yeah.
growing up, I mean, caddying from where he lived
Mm,
to the club, how far was that?
well, it's about 3.5 miles to get there, and then 18 holes, and
Yeah.
then 3.5 miles going home.
Wow.
So
All on a piece of bread and a cup of milk.
a cup of milk. No, I had a cup of coffee,
Cup of coffee.
warm cafe con leche.
Wow.
Yes, so I'm very happy for him. He paid his dues, and everybody's recognized that, and the tour has been very nice to him, courteous, and all the players, and from Gary Player to Ernie Els. I mean, just on and on. So good for the golf community to take care of one of their own.
First player to earn his second senior major title on PGA Tour Champions within 6 days.
6 days.
How about that? Line him up as far as the senior majors
Yeah,
are
because the
concerned.
previous week he was leading and they had to stop with 6 holes to go, and he came back the next Monday of that week
Yeah.
and turned the victory, and then went on to congressional and won that one.
What's Cabrera's preparation looking like for these tournaments? Coming off the regions, was he at congressional the next week on Monday and Tuesday? Was he resting? Does he not start his prep until Wednesday? What's his routine, Charlie?
Well, his routine on the Champions Tour is a lot different than it was on the regular tour. But the Champions Tour is the at his level prior to him becoming a major champion. He and the leading money winner and all that. He had to play a pro am like he came to Houston. He was invited to the Houston tournament. He played a pro am on Monday, played a pro am on Tuesday and Wednesday,
Yeah.
and then so your preparation is in the pro-ams, and uh, so it's just that
Yeah.
simple.
And how
But now, as a major champion, he doesn't have to show up to 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 the venue until Wednesday,
wow.
and he'll play a pro-am on Thursday, and then the tournament Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So now his schedule is really good.
we'll keep an eye on Cabrera. We'll talk a little bit more about maybe some of the more physical improvements he's done later in the show. That seems to be a big theme in golf, especially with last week's PGA Tour winner, Ben Griffin. You know, he won the Charles Schwab Challenge at Colonial. Charlie, this is a player in his late 20s who, was a great player at the University of North Carolina. Um,
Yes, yeah,
came out of school and tried his talents a little bit on the Canadian tour and the Corn Ferry tour. Actually, quit golf for a year,
uh-huh,
became a mortgage broker. Said this isn't for me. Had a sponsor that he was working with say, I'll put up six figures for you to go try your luck in professional golf over the next 2 years. And in that time, last year he was racking up top 25 after top 25,
yep.
made some distance gains over the last 6 months, and is now a two-time PGA Tour winner. Saw him win at the Zurich alongside Andrew Novak and won his second last week at Colonial.
There's been people that get tired of their work, get tired of their play, and you leave something, and then you realize what you had, and you come back stronger. It's happened before, and then this young man has. But I don't know if he knew he was going to make every putt he looked at.
That way, it's funny. Well, after he shot 65 in the opening round at Memorial on Thursday, he goes, I guess I'm still blackout. I'll try to keep it going. But he's got his work cut out for him this weekend. He opened 65-72. Griffin did, shares the lead with five-time PGA Tour winner Nick Taylor, who most recently won at the Zony Open in January. Griffin, like last week, a ton of top players on his tail. Two-time PGA Tour winner Akshay Bhatia is two back at 5 under. Bhatia is feeling like he's hitting his iron play the best he ever has in his career. This weekend for him is going to be a battle if he can keep his driver on the planet. Loves to curve, that driver off the tee. Bhatia and Nicholas were joking this week, Charlie. Bhatia asked Nicholas, how am I going to get around this place? And Jack goes, just put the ball in the fairway. Easier said than done with the way that rough's grown up, huh,
Oh,
Charlie?
that's an incredible golf course that they're playing this week. It's finally in the last, Jack's been working on that project since 1976, and once they opened it up to tournament play, and he's been messing, tweaking it every year. And but this, for example, the 17th hole is 500 yards long. It used to be 380. It was kind of a cute little hole, but Jack, he wasn't going to fight the golf ball. He's going to make you play, and he's got the rough extremely thick. It's not that it's high, although they haven't cut it since last Monday, I guess it was.
Yeah.
But the grass is that bluegrass is rough to get it out.
You go in the bluegrass off the tee and you're chipping out, huh,
Yeah,
Charlie?
yeah. If the ball goes all the way down, you better chip out because you're gonna mess up if you don't.
That's even been the case a couple times this week for world number one Scotty Scheffler, who is silently lurking in solo fourth, three back of the lead, and he's looking for his third win this year. Here 2 weeks out before the U.S. Open. Scheffler has to be the favorite going into Oakmont. He's looking good here through two rounds this week, playing on his third week in a row, Charlie, after winning the PGA and showed up at Colonial last week and is now playing, here the seventh elevated event of the season. Scheffler, he made a big run at Colonial last week, had a chance there on Sunday again.
He did. He knows patience, and you can see him working himself around the golf courses, and all of a sudden you can see him hit one or two shots, and he's back in at that high mode. He makes the. I mean, yesterday he missed a couple putts. If not, he'd been right there. So he's quite a talent, and he reminds me a lot of Tom Weiskopf, but smarter. Tom was a little head case. Tom was one of the best ball strikers for a tall man. back in his day.
Back before they tailored the equipment to it.
Yeah, that's right. And the shafts were different and all that. But this Scotty guy is the real deal.
These bigger guys, Charlie, the equipment manufacturers, guys like Phil Blackmore and Tom
Yeah,
Weiskopf,
yeah.
the manufacturers didn't have an answer for them
No,
back in the day, did
especially
they?
the shafts. The shaft that hadn't, they had the heavy shafts, the X100s that weighed 130 grams, and now they've got a lighter, stronger shaft that helps and that flexes at the right moment for the torque that they put on the shaft as they come out of their downswing, and so it's fun to watch.
So would guys like Weiskopf and Blackmore, those guys, would they have to adjust their swings, based off
Yeah,
the
they
equipment?
they'd adjust their. Andy Beam used to order 6 sets of clubs, 6 at the same time, and then he would work those 6 until he found one. The one special club, and he'd put together his set and disregard the rest of the clubs that he they didn't have the proper
Yeah.
feel. And I remember that. And Andy could hit an 8 iron like the modern day player. I mean, 180 yards. I mean, come on.
It's impressive. I wasn't here to watch, Charlie, but that was a better generation
Better
of golf.
golf. Nah, each generation has been super.
Uh, Charlie, we're going to talk about, we have 1 minute here left in break, and we're going to hear from Jack Nicklaus and his opening press conference where there were so many good bites at the start of the Memorial Tournament. All the big names on property this week except world number 2 and Grand Slam champion Rory McIlroy.
Rory, disappointment. I don't understand that. But I must say, this week they honored a special lady,
That's
Barbara
right.
Nicholas.
That's right.
She was one of my students. You talk about a sweet person to talk, to teach, and we had so much fun in a couple of golf schools. So Barbara's really nice.
Jack was talking about that. He was wondering who was going to be the recipient this year, and he asked his son Gary, and Gary said, "Well, it's about time Mom wins."
That's right. Mom's doing all the work, Dad.
Okay, we got to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll listen into Jack Nicklaus's press conference, give our review on it, get to a little bit more on the leaders at the Memorial Tournament. This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hour presented by Insperity, HR that makes a difference. Back after this.
The Charlie Epps Golf Hour, powered by Insperity, continues
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Will Doctor and Charlie Epps.
Well, 2 weeks ago, I was up at the U.S. Open final qualifying in Dallas, Charlie.
Yes.
I've been following. It was at Bentry, and I've been following our friend and Insperity brand ambassador, also a friend of the show, Johnny Kiefer, who was just putting on a clinic on the Corn Ferry Tour, qualified for the PGA Championship, didn't make the cut, but the very next week, he was at Bentry, final qualifying for the U.S. Open. Charlie sunk a 35-footer on his 36th hole, the last hole of qualifying, to get into a playoff, and then gets through the playoff, and he will now be in the U.S. Open at Oakmont, a Corn Ferry Tour player playing his second major of the year. And He is backed and supported by our good friends at Insperity, an HR company, making a difference not only in the world of business, but also in the golf world.
That's exactly right. Small business is what drives our economy. The United States of America, it has thousands of small businesses that need help with HR so they can run their business. And Insperity has perfected the art of working with small business to get their bottom line to where they want it to be. And it's because of the professional people that run Insperity, a company that is really unique in their philosophy. Their mantra is, they want companies to succeed so communities can prosper. How about that?
No, it's really unbelievable how they put their 30 plus years of experience to
Yeah.
work on a week to week basis,
Yeah,
Charlie.
they've grown to 7 billion, because they know what they're doing and they do a great job. So log on to Insperity.com, have their representatives come and see you,
Yeah.
tell them what you got, and I guarantee you they can help you. It's Insperity.com.
It's really amazing how they can lighten your HR load, which allows you to just focus on growing your business, surrounded by employees from Insperity who are empowered to be their best. So once again, visit Insperity.com for the best HR performance in the nation. We continue as far as the Memorial Tournament at Muirfield Village. Jack Nicklaus had a great press conference to start this week, Charlie. Talked to the media for 55 minutes and was very clear. He looked very good. I saw him at the Valero Texas Open a couple months ago. You saw him at the Insperity Invitational. Jack's having a pretty good year.
Jack is, he's enjoying his later years in life, and he's very, very, you can see he's very pensive, and he thinks what he says, and he means what he says, and I know he was surprised that Rory McIlroy didn't show up to his championship, and we're going to hear a little more later about.
Yeah, we'll hear that right now. Here was 18-time major champion on the 6th Grand Slam champion, Rory McIlroy, not making an appearance at Muirfield Village this week.
Hey, Jack, two separate things. First, just to clarify, were you not aware until basically the rest of us that Rory wasn't coming?
I was sort of aware of it about the middle of last week.
And so it sort of surprises you, I guess, that he's not?
Yeah, it surprised me, but guys have got schedules and got things they do. And, I haven't talked to him for him to tell me why or why not. That's just his call. I made a lot of calls that I had to make when I played to play or not play, and sometimes it wasn't as popular as people thought it was. But sometimes you have to make those calls. I don't hold anything against Rory for that. He does what he likes to play. I know he likes to play so many in a row. He likes to play the week before a U.S. Open, and so that's what he's doing. So, I really don't have a comment on it. It's very difficult, very difficult. I mean, I'm a big Rory fan, always have been, and I'm sure that will remain that way. I was a little surprised. Yes.
Nicklaus doing his best there to keep it completely class act per usual.
Yeah, politically correct, and he's gonna err towards the player because he was a player, and like he said, he at times had to not show up at a tournament, and that upsets certain people.
He's still when Jack was at the Valero Texas Open this year, he was still apologizing to the tournament that he had never made an appearance there over his career.
Yeah.
But his tournament in the Valero Texas Open, two completely different tournaments. I mean, this is, there's only 3 players on the PGA Tour that have a tournament to their name. And Mr. Nicklaus worked extremely hard to get this tournament back 2 weeks before the U.S. Open instead of the week before. That meant a lot to him, Charlie.
Yes, yeah. No. He's once again, he's worked hard on that tournament, and he's made it his goal to do the things that he thinks is correct for his sponsor. And what's interesting, Workday is a sponsor, and the chairman was on television, and he really likes Nicholas, and he's got a great backing. And we got a relationship for Insperity and Workday. They're
That's
two
right.
companies that do the same thing, and
They have a little collaboration.
yeah, that's right. So it's quite a company.
The one thing here with Rory, Charlie, it was his idea. He was a pretty main culprit in designing these elevated events, these signature events where
Yep.
there's only 70 players. And, Jack's tournament, Mr. Palmer's tournament, and Tiger's tournament are the only ones that have cuts, and they're all shrunken down to 70 players. For him to miss the third one of the season, it's that's tough to see.
It would have made him play 3 tournaments in a row, 2 tournaments prior to the U.S. Open, and then play the U.S. Open
On
at
his-
Oakmont.
on
The
his third
best
week
way
in a
to
row.
prepare for Oakmont? Just show up Thursday for your time, because the practice round's not going to do you any good.
And a lot of the players, Akshay Bhatia mentioned it, that Muirfield, he thinks it's a great preparation for Oakmont.
Yeah, it is.
Would you say so, Charlie?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Yeah.
The greens aren't quite as demanding as Oakmont's greens, but the rest of the golf course is second to none.
I think instead of fines, because these players have so much money, Charlie, if you're going to miss the signature events, I think you have to add events like the John Deere Classic and like the Wyndham Championship on the back of your schedule. I think that might be a more fair trade. I think Rory got docked $100,000 last year for missing an extra signature event. What is that to Rory? Let's see him show up in Silvis, Illinois.
I don't know. That's a hard call, because the PGA Tour is independent contract status, so they don't pay any salaries. They don't do anything, so it becomes a player's choice.
Yeah. Just like talking to media right now, Charlie,
Yeah.
it's a player's choice. We've seen that become a little bit of a bigger issue this year with, it really started last year. Rory not talking to the media after losing the U.S. Open, and Colin Morikawa not talking to the media after losing a really tough battle against Russell Henley at Bay Hill. And then Shane Lowry, he was in the mix through 3 rounds at the Masters, shot an 81 on Sunday, and told the media that they all just need to relax. Players should be given a 1-hour cool down after their rounds before they talk to media. These are the ideas floating around as far as post-round press conferences. Jack Nicklaus gave his 2 cents on the way he approached the media over his career and how he still does to this day.
Well, I'm not going to talk for Roy or anybody else. I'll talk for myself. I've always felt that you guys have a job to do, and gals, and that for you to do your job, you need to talk to me. And whether I played well or whether I played poorly, if you still want to talk to me, I'll talk to you. And I always have.
Just about as class as they come, Charlie.
Yeah, no, that makes his sense, and that's a Jack Nicklaus. He's done that all his life.
Yeah. Looking forward to the weekend, third round starting this afternoon there at Muirfield Village. We talked Ben Griffin. He is in a tie for the lead with Nick Taylor, 5-time PGA Tour winner Nick Taylor. This guy has sneaky won some big-time golf tournaments, Charlie. Phoenix Open, there with the stadium audience, won the Canadian Open last year. Won at Pebble Beach a few years ago, and then won his 5th title earlier this season at the Sony Open. Taylor gave a great description on Muirfield Village and the challenges that it presents.
Well, the rough is almost second to none, at least for call it quote unquote regular tour event, or regular stop, I should say. It's the lie I had on 10 to hit in the right rough. I could hit it maybe 40 yards at best. Torrey was pretty thick this year. Bay Hill was always thick, but it seems to be just a little bit thicker here, playing that much more difficult. You can catch a break here or there, but you just got to be in the fairway. So it's definitely top 2 or 3 most difficult every year, and this year, just with the rough, it seems to be just a brutal test.
He will look to convert his second career 36-hole lead led at the halfway point of the 2020 Pebble Beach Pro-Am and got the job done there. Nick Taylor, a Canadian who can absolutely close in the big moment. And to kind of echo Taylor's sentiments on the toughness of Muirfield Village, Jack Nicklaus did give a comment on how he's keeping up with his golf course amidst this crazy time in golf technology where the driver is getting only more powerful. The ball is going farther. Here was Nicholas on the golf ball and other technology.
Um, as long as the golf ball doesn't change too much. I think that this golf course, when and if they ever enact their new golf ball, it will only help this golf course. If I guess they pushed it back 2 more years, did they? They pushed it back from what 26 to 28. I really I don't follow it as much as I used to follow it, but they pushed the ball back, and as I understand, the ball is about 14 yards shorter for the longest of hitters out here, maybe 2 or 3 yards shorter for the average golfer.
He's talking about what they're going to.
I think that only will help sort of put a line in the sand. Hopefully the line doesn't go anywhere. I mean, we just can't keep buying land. I mean, you can't just buy the golf course next door. Not many people can afford what Augusta did at Augusta Country Club. You just can't do that. And we don't have any land to buy. I mean, I can go buy houses and knock them down. I obviously can't do that. But that's what we'd have to do. But I don't think the game is controlled by how far a golf ball goes. And if you control it within some reason, then we know that a golf course that is here today will still be sufficient 20 years from now.
Sounds like Jack has a little bit more insight on where the golf ball is going compared to us. It sounded like he signaled there that whenever the change in golf ball does happen, I was not even aware that a change was coming. I thought it was more just conversation. Okay.
They've said that.
They're rolling it back.
They're supposedly the USGA has made that, and the RNA have made that decision. I'm a member of an organization called the PGA of America, and as club professionals, and we're close to the game, we're a little afraid of that, because the worst thing you can do is make it longer for an 18 handicap.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to have this bifurcation where the professional game is different from the amateur game. But I think it should be different. I mean,
Yeah.
It's two different animals, you might say. And you sit here and you watch this Roland Garros with these new, athletes that playing tennis that are 6'3", 6'4".
It's the same thing, Charlie.
Yeah.
Improvements in training, improvements in the racket, and the
yeah.
strings.
Yeah.
It's they've come a long way.
And
do you buy?
ball.
Yeah, and the ball. Do you buy into this so-called new golf ball? That would cost the pros 14 yards, but then Jack said it's only going to cost the amateur 3 to 4 yards. What if the amateur has similar swing speeds to the pro? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of amateurs that can really, rip the ball. Not that they know where it's going, but they have similar speeds. Now, we got to take a quick break. This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hour presented by Insperity, HR that makes a difference. Your questions on the other side.
The Charlie Epps Golf Hour, powered by Insperity, continues
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Will Doctor and Charlie Epps.
All right, some big announcements this week as far as some adjustments to the Tour Championship. The PGA Tour announced enhancements to the Tour Championship format in the FedEx Cup race. Really the key thing here is that the Tour Championship starting this year will be played as a 72-hole stroke play event with all players starting the tournament at even par instead of at starting strokes based on how they fared over the course of the year. And then the best performer over the course of 4 rounds at the Tour Championship will win the FedEx Cup. Charlie, still 30 players, but no more starting strokes. They're all going to start at even par. Your thoughts?
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
I just always thought that was kind of strange to do that, to handicap the field because of past play, and so now it makes it free for the top 30, and if the top 30, the 30th ranked player wins, so be it.
Yeah. And I think obviously there's more than 30 tournaments over the course of the year. So there are PGA Tour winners of the current year who are left out of the Tour Championship. Now, listen, if you win one tournament and then go miss 26 cuts, then, maybe your place in the Tour Championship is not deserved. I still think 30 players is a little too close to that live golf range where you just don't have a big enough David versus Goliath story where, the 35th player on the FedEx Cup, standings has still had a very commendable year. The players that is left out there, I think, 40 to 50 should be considered. We asked Scheffler about that this week. Here was Scheffler on the 30-player field staying put at Eastlake.
I think 30 is a good number. I think you have to strike a balance between, if you look at it this way, if you're going to have a true season-long race, you're just going to add up FedEx Cup points for the entire season, and you're just going to award a winner. And that would be the truest test of a best season. But we have different awards for that. We have the Player of the Year award for that. There's different stuff for having the best season, just straight up. And I think if we're going to have something interesting for the fans to watch at the end of the year, I think there has to be some sort of balance between rewarding guys for having a great season, and that, whether it be 30 guys or 20, whatever number we settle on, there's going to be a balance between rewarding guys for having a great regular season and then giving guys an opportunity to have a great postseason and have an opportunity to win the FedEx Cup. But you're not going to have an opportunity to win the FedEx Cup unless you have a really good regular season. And so that is keeping that field for the Tour Championship a little bit smaller, whether that be 30 guys. I think that's a pretty good number because you also want to have an interesting tournament. If you had 8 guys playing 72-hole stroke play, odds are that's not going to have a very exciting finish very often, especially if it's going to be on a difficult golf course where there's a lot of separation between the scores.
Good answer there from world number 1, Scotty Scheffler.
Very good. Very good. Very, very basic. Very, let's the top 30 get to play, and so be it. And no strokes, no nothing. And I think it's still a good championship. I think it still looks good on television. So here we go again.
All right, let's take your questions here for the Golf Doctor. Here's Marco in Fort Worth. Charlie, I'm raising a 10-year-old and teaching her how to play golf. Marco saw, I'm trying to paraphrase here, not well written. Marco says he watched the Drive, Trip, and Putt Championship, saw a lot of junior golfers doing aim point and other techniques on the greens. What are your lessons, Charlie, that will really help improve the game of the junior golfer?
Well, that's a big question, and I always encouraged my kids and my juniors to have fun first, and know the difference between anger and just not getting mad, not getting frustrated, and learn to control yourself. And that's hard to do when you're 6 and 7. There's no emotion there at that level, but once you get the frustration level of 10 to 12, kids, they know the difference between a good shot and a bad shot, and it's sometimes adults can't handle it, let alone kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Charlie, what about the aim point? The average number of
Ah.
putts on the PGA Tour is going up. You're seeing more of these techniques going on the greens at a younger age. Your thoughts on that?
I really don't understand aim point. I've listened to a couple of presentations, uh, but I think it's a
Yeah.
waste of time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be efficient. Your pre-shot routine has got to. I don't see why you let caddies walk all over the greens, for example.
You think they should stay off?
Yeah,
Shouldn't
I
be
mean,
allowed on the
I
greens.
don't.
Yeah.
Why are you going to let somebody come up to the batter's box in baseball and say, "Now here,
Yeah.
stay away from the game."
Yeah.
The caddy is there to carry the bag to give them some good yardages, but these caddies look for FaceTime.
Yeah.
They get up over the ball and they
Between the marker and the hole, I mean, they're
Oh,
walking all over
yeah,
it, Charlie.
yeah,
Sticking the fingers up, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
what happened to feel?
Let them qualify for the tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Here is Gus in Cyprus. Charlie, I'm trying to add 5 to 10 yards to my drive and don't really have the time to exercise. Is there any other way to add distance?
Play it forward.
Yeah. Move up tee boxes, huh?
Move tee box. Maybe if you're playing from the championship, you know tee boxes and your 18 handicap, you don't belong there. You go back to the white tees.
Yeah.
And the senior tees. That's but there's ways to add distance, but you're going to have to practice.
Yeah. Now, a lot of these, listen, Ben Griffin talked about it a lot. He's your leader going into the weekend at Memorial, won at Colonial last week. He's talked a lot over the last 2 weeks about the investments he's made in training.
Yeah.
Let's hear a little bit more from that, from Griffin.
Yeah, just working out every single day. You used to see guys, on tour. I mean, we probably shouldn't mention their names that much, whatever. But Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, some of those guys back when they were kind of dominating the majors, they were in the gym like every day, pumping, like doing dumbbell presses and like bench press, stuff like that. And as a golfer, I never thought I necessarily needed to do that. I was more into the longevity of the game, staying flexible, feeling good. And I had quad tendonitis in my left knee. That sparked up this past off season. Was kind of training, but wasn't doing a ton about it. It was kind of more resting, and got to Pebble Beach and had some funky lies, and it was really messing me up. It was hard for me to hit bunker shots. I just have the tendonitis would flare up. And so that's when I met my now trainer, Derek Schmidt. I was using him as a PT guy at first, just to try to alleviate some of my pain. And what I learned is I needed to strengthen it as much as possible. So at first I was training just to be kind of healthy again. And what I came to learn is I was starting to feel better. I was starting to feel stronger. I was starting to gain a little bit of speed. And I was like, man, if I keep this up, like I can kind of, continue to get higher and higher ball speeds, better prepare me for majors. So one of my big goals was actually going into PGA at Quail, was to get my ball speed with my driver to 190, which is wasn't really attainable. But in my head, I was thinking, if I can take out the bunker on 16 off that tee, which is like a 325-yard carry, 330-yard carry, which Rory is notorious for flying over and having wedges into that hole. I was like, if I can do that, it's going to save me a few shots. All of a sudden, this golf course is going to be as challenging. And I don't think golf used to be this way. There's a lot of talk about the golf ball and the technology and how far it's going. And whether or not you like it or not, for me, I have to take advantage of the opportunity to hit it really far. And the last 3-4 months, I really kind of locked in on that, trying to gain speed, trying to still, maintain flexibility, mobility. I mean, it's important. I'm on the road every week. I'm flying, driving cars. None of it's good for my body, but doing a lot of maintenance, building strength. And yeah, basically just my kind of goal has been to swing harder, get like a mile per hour faster or so every week or two. And I've just been on this nice trajectory right now. I'm trying not to push it too much, but definitely conscious of trying to hit it a little bit further. And I think I swing better when I hit it harder. It's weird. I feel like when I'm swinging hard, I'm actually like hitting it kind of straighter. It's funky. Golf's a weird sport, but here I am. I guess I'm an athlete now.
Charlie, you're Angel Cabrera doing some of these similar methods to stay active at 55 years old. When you talk about speed and gaining distance, it's tough to get around, at least a little bit of work in the gym or PT or one of these other methods in the gym.
Well, I always had a comment. I said to my students, swing hard in case you hit it. There's nothing bad about creating a swing with more speed, but it's got to come through effort. And then effort is a result of, DeChambeau has changed his physique to accommodate more speed. And I think that's what people have to do, whether it's a hands, wrists, and arms game. You got to get your hands, wrists, and arms stronger. You got to get your legs stronger. So it's a matter of working out. So the gentleman that doesn't quite have the time, you got to make time, and a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the evening, over 6 months, you could probably see some 4 or 5 miles an hour more, which each mile an hour is 10 to 12 yards. So you can do it, but you gotta work at it as far as your body's strength.
Great stuff there, Charlie. Quick break. Back after this. One more to go. This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hour presented by Insperity, HR that makes a difference.
This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hour on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Powered by Insperity.
Now from the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's Will Doctor and the golf doctor himself, Charlie Epps.
All right, Nick Taylor and Ben Griffin are your leaders going into the weekend at the Memorial Tournament, week 22 of the 2025 PGA Tour season. Chasing it's a great bunch of players. Akshay Bhatia will go off at 2:59 Eastern alongside Scotty Scheffler. Bhatia is at 5 under, 2 back. Scheffler at 4 under, 3 back. Also, a great bunch at 5 under par. That is Sam Burns, Shane Lowry, and Jordan Spieth. They will all start the day 4 back of Taylor and Griffin. Charlie, you're liking what you're seeing from Spieth's game here through a couple rounds, huh?
Yes, all year long, his swing has matured, and they've been working and they've made some changes, and my hat's off to him, and I think he's going to have a breakaway one of these days,
Yeah.
and he's going to get back in the winner's circle.
The complete game has really looked there for Spieth. He's giving himself opportunities in the fairways. He's making all the putts. It seems to be the iron play that maybe takes a nap every 1 or 2 events, Charlie.
But I think his iron swing is really, really spot on. I think they got it on plane. He looks and he repeats it. And for him to do what he did yesterday at Muirfield,
Yeah.
birdie the last 3 holes, keep it in play. And that'll get his inner confidence going with his putter. So I look forward to seeing. I think he could win the Grand Slam. All he has to do is win the PGA.
Yeah. Aronimik will be an interesting place
Yeah.
for him next year at the
I
PGA.
played Aronimik.
That's a course that sets up for his game, no?
Yes, it does. It's a big golf course. It's a
Talk about put on some
Eastern.
distance. He has
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So one thing I learned at Aronimik, I was there with a good friend of mine, Rick Harris. God bless his soul. I mean, he was just a great friend, and he came in for having lunch to have lunch with me, and so we walked in, and Jim Thorpe was just coming in. I said,
Wow.
Jim, come on over here and have lunch with us. And he said, okay. And it was a buffet. So Rick and I, we get our food, and we sit at the table, and here comes Jim, and he's got 4 plates in his hand,
How good is that?
and it's all dessert. I said, Jim, what are you doing? Have you already had lunch? He said, no. I always have my dessert first. See, when you grow up in a household like me and had all these brothers and all that, if you didn't eat, protect your meal and your desserts, you're not going to have any. So we take care of them first. That was
Aronimik, a big dessert buffet spread, huh?
Oh yeah, it was great for the PJ Senior Championship.
Incredible, Charlie. One more thing on Mr. Nicholas before we get to a couple bites from the leaders. Jack was on the Memorial broadcast yesterday, and they're Ben Griffin's in the lead, and they go down to Rex Hoggard on the course, who Griffin had just hit his tee ball on what hole was it? It was the par 4 17th at Muirfield Village. And the broadcast goes down to Rex Hoggard, and Griffin had just hit his ball in the left rough. And Charlie, Jack goes, I can't stand that on the broadcast. He goes, the interview's on the golf course. I can't stand that. And he goes, if you did that to Ben Hogan down the stretch of a tournament, the reporter would not have any teeth left.
No. And he wouldn't go to that tournament.
Yeah.
I mean,
the mid-round interviews feel a little forced. You're not going to see that in any other sport.
No, it's out of character. Let the athlete play golf.
Yeah. That was some good stuff from Jack. Going into the weekend, I think the player to watch has to be Akshay Bhatia. And we're going to get to him in a minute just to get you up to date on where the favorites are. Scotty Scheffler was the number 1 favorite going into the week. He is in solo 4th at 4 under. Colin Morikawa, he was the 2nd favorite at 16-1. He's in a tie for 8th at 2 under. Morikawa, Charlie, has the most rounds in the 60s of any player in these signature events since 2024. He was right there, at the top of the leaderboard, down the stretch yesterday, made 2 doubles in his last 5 holes, just
Yeah.
having a little bit of trouble closing rounds.
Yeah, he's not focused there. You hate to see a little distraction. Something's bothering him because
Yeah.
he's too good a player to be doing what he's doing, and
Yeah.
and he's stressing too much. He wants to win so much. He won those 2 majors, and now I don't know when's the last time he had a victory.
Yeah, it's been since the 2021 Zozo Championship, I
Zozo and the
believe.
British Open, the year.
Yeah,
he
no,
won the British.
it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
It's been
So-
no. It was the 22 Zozo, and it's been almost 3 years now.
Yeah.
That was his last win,
So
Morikawa. So he's in a tie for 8th at 200. Not out of this tournament. Xander Schauffele was the third favorite. Schauffele's progressing very nicely after an injury at the start of this year. He won 2 majors last year, British Open and the PGA. Xander starts the weekend 5 back. Justin Thomas was your 4th favorite. He is in a tie for 50th at 5 over. JT got the big win not a couple events ago now, but a month ago now at the RBC Heritage. Didn't have a great showing at the PGA. Didn't play well this week, Charlie. I think you see him back in form by Oakmont.
it'll be interesting to see how they play at Oakmont.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be. I don't know if it's 10 times harder than Muirfield, but it is a harder golf course. Where green complexes are so demanding, and the rough is really rough. So it'll be an interesting.
Charlie, how about that week in 2007 when Cabrera won at Oakmont? I mean, your memories from that and what your expectations were to start the week.
Well, that's when we started working with his putting and a relationship, and he wasn't in the U.S. Open that year until the week before the tournament, and he had to fly to Pittsburgh from Europe, and so he got there on Monday, and he just went right to the hotel and went to sleep, and then on Tuesday he went out there to play his practice round, and there's 156 people playing in the U.S. Open, and on Tuesdays the practice rounds there's foursomes, and everybody's taking all this time, and it gets very frustrating. So Uncle played 9 holes on Tuesday.
Do you remember who he played with?
I don't.
It's okay.
And then on Wednesday he went out again to play the other 9 holes. Well, it's same thing. 3 holes is taking an hour and a half. So it's hard to prepare for a U.S. Open when you leave it, to 2 days before the tournament. So you got to try to go prior. But this I'm really anxious to see how Oakmont play. They cut down 10,000 trees.
I've seen the before and after maps.
Yeah.
I don't love it.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I love the tree lines at every golf course, if possible, Charlie.
Well, but it was designed to see, the most famous course in the country in the world doesn't have any trees on it.
You're right, but it's got a little bit better topography there in Scotland and England, and the undulations are much better. The weather's built for that kind of style of course. If it, hopefully it doesn't rain, that in Oakmont in 2 weeks, because if there's no trees, I mean, I know the rough is up and it's similar to Jack's place where you got to pitch out if you miss the fairway, but nothing like a good tree line golf course, Charlie. What are your before and after? What do you think's better?
Well, the golf course was designed on a piece of property that had no trees. So over 100 years of the club, everybody start planting trees. It's hard to grow grass in the shade.
Yeah.
But it changes the wind. It changes a lot of things that affect play. So we'll be. I'll be very interested to see how this year's U.S. Open goes.
2 weeks out. We'll talk to you, next Saturday as far as the RBC Canadian Open is concerned. And then the next week will be the U.S. Open. As far as a pick going into the weekend, I'm going to stay away from the top of this leaderboard with Scheffler lurking 3 shots back. I think anytime he's near the top of the leaderboard right now with the way his game is, he's got to be the favorite. But one guy I'm very interested in is 2-time PGA Tour winner Akshay Bhatia. He's going to play alongside Scheffler today. It's going to be a big moment for him. He's won twice on the PGA Tour, and here was Akshay yesterday after his round on his comfort in the big spot in contention at big tournaments.
I always feel excited and confident going into, being in contention. I think that's what I strive for, and I always feel like it adds a little bit of focus, but it's just so enjoyable. You get the chills when you make a great putt or just keep executing. And I feel like the last 4 weeks or so, I've kind of been tiptoeing in contention since, I would say, Augusta. And then I just kind of have some drop-off periods. And the PGA was pretty disappointing, kind of being top 5 for a long time and then missing that cut. And that's, one of the reasons I went to Schwab and had a chance to, try and win that golf tournament, and obviously didn't on Sunday. And so I'm just honestly tired of being there and then not being there. And so this is just a nice step in the direction of having 2 good days here at a tough golf course.
Charlie, Nick Taylor, Ben Griffin, Akshay Bhatia, Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, Shane Lowry. If you had to make a pick this weekend at Jack's place, who would it be?
I want Akshay to win.
I love it. Akshay Bhatia to win his 3rd PGA Tour event. I like it, Charlie. Great work today. Thank you, Abigail, behind the 1s and 2s. We'll see you next weekend here on the Charlie Epps Golf Hour. Brian Sparity, HR that makes a difference.